Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices, and you can sign up for product alerts. Mini Express is a train game you can play in less than an hour for up to 5 players, where there's 4 different companies and you are trying to gain shares in those companies, but also drive up the values of these companies, but also have the most influence in them as well. Because at the end of the game, you're getting points for each share. You look at that company and see where you are in respects to other players. First place in this case for this company that has a certain amount of tracks on the board. So each share for me is going to be worth 7 points. First place for Brown. You're battling for influence on the different companies and trying to figure out when to make certain companies more valuable. And you can play on the United States side of the board, or on the other side there's Europe. Turns are very simple. You're either expanding a train company into a different city and gaining influence in both of these companies, like Gray and Brown for example, or you're taking a share of one of those companies but going down in influence the number of trains that are still there, so everything you do changes the decisions for all other players. It's counterintuitive because as you gain shares, you're actually diluting your influence in that company, which makes it a tough balance. So even though you're only taking one of 2 actions, there's plenty of depth as to what to do when. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Now Mini Express gives you a train game feel in under an hour. The mechanisms are simple, you just got 2 choices on your turn, but the depth and implications of your choices are huge. Interactions with players are amazing. Everything you do does something else for somebody else. And the map setup and the board state always changing gives you different strategies as the game goes on. Gaining shares loses you influence in what you're trying to build up, so it has interesting design choices that are brilliant. Building tracks sets others up for shares, and this game just has clever designs and tons of subtleties. On the negative side of things, the game's white and gray trains, because they were screen printed with the opposite trains' colors, makes it hard to tell which one's which. I just had to flip them over. Missed opportunity for calling companies actual names, so you'll have more ties to those companies and make the game more enjoyable. If you don't like train games, this isn't going to make you like it. But if you're looking for a short 60-minute or less train game with easy mechanisms but tons of depth, check out Mini Express. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today there's going to be trains going all around the United States, or possibly Europe. They're going to be delivering goods, and it's going to be giving you influence in different companies. Now you're going to be trying to have stock in the right companies with the right influence. Today we're taking a look at Mini Express. This is a very small little train game for less than an hour, up to 5 players. Let me show you how it's played. I'll see you on the other side. Mini Express is essentially a mini train game. Now there's 4 different companies of trains denoted by these 4 different colors, and you're going to be getting different stocks from these and hopefully driving those stock prices up the most and having the most influence in those companies. Now here's the board. This is actually the US side, and on the other side there's a Europe side. Now the game's going to start with each of those 4 train companies starting in a certain city, and over the course of the game these train companies are going to be, they're going to be expanded to different cities by all or different players. Doesn't matter who owns what, things going to be going and being delivered to different cities, and these different demand tiles are going to have different effects, but you're going to be building from the East Coast kind of towards the West. Now those 4 companies are also denoted down here, and this is going to track the different players' influence. So this is how it might look towards the end of the game. And scoring is all done at the end, and it all depends on shares, your influence, and how many tracks were built for each company. For example, if you're the red player and you are the furthest along this company's influence track, you're the furthest up it, we'd look at this brown one, and this brown one actually had 12 tracks put out. So if you're in first place, each share you have is worth 9. If you're in second place of influence, blue, each of their brown shares are worth 7, and anyone else, like purple and other players, they would only be worth 4. But you come down here, and the one that had the least amount of tracks, well, that's gray. Well, blue and purple are both tied. They're going to get 6 points for each of their shares. This player's going to get 2 for each of their shares. So players are going to be manipulating the board, but at the end, it's literally your shares are worth where you are in influence and where those companies are on these tracks, depending on how many tracks were built for each of those. Once you understand that concept, let's show you how you do this, because it's actually very simple. So on your turn, you literally have 2 choices: build track or gain shares. When you build a track, you pick any of the 4 companies, and you build off of any of the cities they're in or any of the other hexes that they have tracks in. And they all start with just one of the cities. So let's say we want to build off Orange, and let's say we want to build to Detroit. So you'll actually take the trains needed from this asset board from that, and there has to be enough trains on this board in order for you to build where you're going. Now when building to a city, you have to take the shortest route. For example, I couldn't have gone here, here, then here. You got to go the shortest route. Now, we went here. So you look at the demand tile that's here. We see the gray and the white. So cotton and steel, for example. So now we actually adjust the influence. It's the beginning of the game. Everyone starts at 1. And so we're going to go up 1 in gray and 1 in white, let's say with a red player. And that's important because that's how you gain the influence in this game, is by bringing trains of any company into cities, and the demands in that city says where you're going up. So it's a very big puzzle of trying to figure out which trains to bring where to get influence where you want it. Now, because we put 1 train in a non-city hex, we actually will take that orange and we'll move it up here because it now has 1 track out there that's not in the city, and that's how this goes up. So the more tracks that are built out in, like, you know, the empty hexes, that's going to bring it up. Now some of them start with this because actually during the beginning of the game you're going to end up drafting through a process 2 shares. There's going to be some shares left over, and some of those move up depending on the amount of players just to start the game. But this normally is how you move this up as you're building those things, and that's literally it. That would have been my whole turn. Move up influence, move the track up. Now let's say the next player went from Baltimore to Detroit with the brown trains. Now each city has a certain amount of different trains that can go in there. This one says 2. So whoever made this go here will also go up in the gray and the white. But because now there's 2 different trains in here, the demand tile gets removed and no other trains can go to this city. And some of them can hold 2, some of them can hold 3, and some of them can only hold 1 train. Now, by the way, if you go to this one, you can get orange and a wild. You can get any of these, for example, the gray, the white, or the brown, for example. Now, since all the trains are taken from the asset board, here's the other interesting thing you can do is instead of building track, you can get shares. So what you do is you get a share. So let's say the next player wants to get this orange share, and they wanted to take this. Now, they would take this and put it in front of them. However, then 3 more trains are going to be added here. But we look at how many are here now. There's 2. Let's say it was the blue player. Let's say this is where they were on the influence track for orange. They would have to go down in influence for each train that was left there when they take a share. This is a very interesting concept because what you do on the board over there depends on what other players can do. And it's going to depend on when you take a share, you're actually diluting your influence in that, which is going to change how much it's worth depending on where this orange one is at the end of the game. Everything is interconnected here in a very interesting way. But then after you do that, you're going to add 3 trains from a supply, which is off into the the side of the board, to here, but you have a max of 5. So now there's 5. So if somebody wanted to take a share here, they'd have to go down 5 in influence. So you're kind of like stopping other players from getting stock until more trains are built from that, right? Now, if there's no trains, well, you're basically setting someone up to take a stock for free, essentially, and not having to go down any influence. So you're always trying to be opportunistic as to when to take shares and what you're possibly setting up other players for. And when you're building trains, again, you build them off the cities or even some of the tracks. If I went to New York, I'd go from here, brown, and then another brown train here. So you're building off like that. And by the way, if you ever go into an empty hex where another train is, that train the trains that are already there also get an extra train added to that asset board we just showed you, which can also manipulate how hard it is to take stock from that. Now the game ends when any 2 companies' stock shares are gone completely, and then we do the scoring. And by the way, once all trains of a certain company are completely gone too, it automatically depletes all the shares if they aren't yet. So once 2 of the companies are out of shares for any of those 2 reasons, then you go to the final scoring. Again, I already told you how you score, but that's pretty much it. You would score, and whoever has the most points is the winner. Cool, well that was Mini Express. Now I've played Mini Rails from this same company that I really liked, and then this is sort of I'd say this is a deeper experience with definitely more control than that. So I was really excited about this because I do like the train games, but I don't like playing like the super long ones. So this is sort of my little, it's right in my wheelhouse there. Now this one absolutely gives you sort of that train game feel in under an hour. And you could actually play it in quite less than an hour if everyone knows what they're doing. Now the mechanisms in this game are simple. It's like literally you can either build track or gain a share. That's it. But the depth and the implications of the choices of even which one of these 2 you do, and then if you're going to do those 2, which ones or how are you going to build and things like that. So it's like from a mechanic standpoint, super simple, but tons of depth. This is really high on what I call my depth to complexity ratio, which is how deep can a game be with being not very complex. So this game is not complex at all, but it's got a lot of depth to it, and I love games. That's sort of my sweet spot, and this game does that. There are tons of interactions with other players. Everything you do affects everyone else, and everything everybody else does affects you. And it's like you are going to be, whether you want to or not, possibly setting other players up for opportunities. And when it's your turn, you're going to need to figure out, you can have a plan for what you're generally trying to do and what you're kind of going for, but based upon how many trains are on that asset board and where things are built and how far you're away from different things is going to change your decision. But it doesn't ever cause like analysis paralysis, because again, there's only two things you can do. So you pretty much got the plan, but you're going to roll with it, and it's going to change depending on what players do. And I love the interactions with the players. The map setup with all the different demand tiles in different spots, and the board state constantly changing always changes your strategies in this game, and I like that. You got to be able to go for something and then pivot. Or what does this player leave? You got to be an opportunist in this game and see what opportunities have the players that just played before me since my last turn, what have they opened up for me, and what's the one that I need to exploit? That's what this game is all about. I love the fact that it's kind of counterintuitive where you're gaining shares because you want those to be worth a certain amount of points, but by gaining the share, it almost dilutes your influence because you have to go down depending on how many trains are there in that asset board. That is a brilliant design choice where it's like, I want to get this share because I see that track is moving up the track. It's got the most tracks. It's built the most up. I better get some shares there, but if I'm not very high on influence, I'm going to come down and lose my spot. Or I may have been working really hard to go up in influence, and I really want to take a share, but there's a lot of trains there. It's going to dilute a lot of the work that I've done to get myself to go up there. And I love that too, because like you're placing trains of a certain color, and it doesn't matter what that color is. You're like driving up something over here, but then you're going to like make it go to a city that makes two different other companies go up in influence for you. So it's like the way that everything is connected in this game is just a brilliant design choice. And because of that, this game has tons of clever design subtleties that, like, yes, they're there, but you don't really get them all until you quite understand the game well. And then it's like, wow, this game, it's so simple and it's so easy and it's so quick, but at the same time, there's a lot of things going on and a lot of things you got to keep going. So overall, I really liked the game. On the negative side of things, a couple of production things. The white and the gray trains. Now, these trains were awesomely screen printed, but the problem is, in order to see the screen print, the white trains were screen printed in gray, and the gray trains screen printed in white. So if you're just looking at the board really quickly, it's very easy to get those two confused. You really have to sort of study them. We ended up, the best way for me was just to turn them over and not look at the screen printing, which stinks because the screen printing makes them look cooler, but it just makes it a little bit more confusing. And with a lot of stuff on the board, a lot of pieces of wood, like I don't want to have to think about what color that is. I just want to be able to know. And unfortunately, it didn't turn out as well. It just hurts the gameplay in that way. Number two is there was a missed opportunity here. Anytime you have a game with stocks or companies that you have owning in, think of the great classic game Acquire, right? Think of even Lords of Vegas, the casino names. Think of Speculation. All the stocks are different names. You end up having an affinity for a certain stock and you're like laughing and you're like, oh, Sphinx or Albion, or, you end up like having an affinity for a name, maybe just for the name. And it makes it act, as silly as it sounds, it always makes those games that much more fun. And because these companies don't have names, and it's literally just the orange company, the brown company, or you could call them the cotton company and the steel company and whatever, just the goods they are, they really missed an opportunity to just name them something. And even if they named them something that had to do with what they were delivering, with the pelts and the stuff like that, that would have been fine, but I think they missed an opportunity to make this game a little more sticky with people, a little bit more fun. Also, this game's a train game. Sure, it's a great thing for under an hour, but if you don't like train games, I don't think this one's going to make you like it. But other than that, I really enjoyed the game. If you're looking for that train game experience in under an hour, simple mechanisms but tons of depth, check out Mini Express. This has been a Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships through board games, and helping you find the next one you'll love. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table to a high-quality gaming solution, they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with their amazing thematic premium stitched edge mats, collapsible cup holders, and really cool accessories, it is a complete system that upgrades every game you play. Get in on the goodness of Game Toppers 3.0 on Kickstarter now. Click the link below or go to GameToppersLLC.com. The mechanics are simple. You just got two choices, but the depth and implication. I can't even talk today. Mechanisms are simple. You only have two choices, but the depth and implications. I can't even say it. Implications. Depth and implications. It's not that hard. Or the mechanisms are simple. You just got two choices on a turn, but the depth. So now I can say implications okay, but I can't say depth. Oh my gosh. I gotta get a drink of water.